Hey, Seattle hockey fans, it's a game day. No, not for the Seattle Kraken, although there is playoff hockey going on. We are talking Coachella Valley Firebirds and their opponent, the Milwaukee Admirals, on today's show. And we got a new graphics package. You'll see that on tomorrow's episode. Without further ado, let's get you ready for my Squadcast episode with Locked On Predators co-host Ann Kimmel. Hello, hockey fans. Welcome to a special Squadcast edition of Locked On Kraken and Locked On Predators. Ann Kimmel is joining us from the Locked On Preds show. Of course, I am your host, Erica L. Ayala of Locked On Kraken. And between the two of us and Nick, we bring you your favorite NHL team every single day, the everydayers. You know Ann Kimmel, but Ann, for those maybe listening in to Locked On Kraken for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself and Nick and the Locked On Preds show.
So Nick, Morgan, and I host the Locked On Predators podcast. We cover everything Nashville Predators. And let me tell y'all, there has been a lot to cover with the Nashville Predators lately. We also keep track of what we like to call our baby Preds, the Milwaukee Admirals.
Yes, and that is why we are squad casting it up, even though the NHL playoffs are still happening for some teams, just not for our teams. But, I'm sure
your team got a lot farther than our teame, if you remember.
It is true. I mean, but we did have Eeli, so I feel like that's our connection there. He's such a, yeah. So anyway, but I'm, again, Erica L. Ayala, Locked On Kraken host. Also am the host of the Women's Hockey Spotlight, which runs every other Friday for now on the Locked On NHL show. But Ann, we talked a little bit about the NHL playoffs still going on right now. Talked about Eeli Tolvanen, bittersweet maybe for some Preds fans. We're definitely taking the sweet side on that deal. But you wanted to talk some playoffs before we hop into our AHL Squadcast.
I do want to talk playoffs. There's nothing to talk about on the Nashville Predators side. We could do a whole podcast on the big feels in Nashville about Eeli Tolvanen, but we will set that aside. But I've been dying to talk to you about the Seattle Kraken and their postseason run. My first question is, what was going on with Grubauer? I mean, wow.
Yes, that's it. That's the answer. Wow. We have talked before on our Squadcasts, and Philip Grubauer, but goaltending overall has been a question mark every day. We're like, who are we going to get? Who's going to be healthy? What's going on? Philip Grubauer, I think, started off really well for us. And actually in exit interviews, Ron Francis talked about how well he felt Philip Grubauer came in to this training camp and into the season. Unfortunately, playing his former team, the Colorado Avalanche, he got injured and we didn't have him for a while. So Martin Jones stepped up in a big way and finally get Gruby back. I think he was playing pretty solid, just like last year, but unfortunately, just like last year, the team in front of him wasn't really playing up to expectation at the time, but that gradually started to change over. But come the playoffs, and the everydayers for Locked On Kraken know that, we're going through our exit interviews, and we started with Grubauer. I named him our MVP of the playoffs. 14 games was just fantastic for us. And I've talked about it before, but Philip Grubauer just never settled into our inaugural season. And I couldn't quite figure out why. You look at some of his numbers and they're favorable. You look at some defensive numbers for the Seattle Kraken even, and they're favorable. Although they were very much like, we're really good when all these 10 things happen at the same time. But but I think with Gruby, there were a few things that are important. One is that there was a goaltending change. And so we bring our goaltending coaching change, I should say.
Gotcha.
So we bring in Steve Briere, and Grubauer. What I like about him is that he won't necessarily throw anyone under the bus, but you can allude, especially with his shorter statements, that there's something that he's not quite comfortable with not feeling. And that's how it felt with the coaching, or I should say what he's saying this year comparative to what he didn't say last year. in my
Yes.
opinion, is telling. And so I think he felt supported. I think that he was on the same page with his goaltending coach, and that probably made the difference. And we'll take it. I mean, it got us to this 2 game 7s in our first ever playoff run.
It was such an exciting storyline, I think, for everybody across the NHL. I know in Nashville, everybody was following Seattle Kraken, and we know it was because of Eeli Tolvanen. Where do you see Eeli Tolvanen's place going forward with the Seattle Kraken? What do you kind of envision for him? Go ahead and just dump the salt directly into the oozing wound. Go ahead.
Well, yes, I do think there is a future. I certainly hope there is a future for Eeli Tolvanen with the Seattle Kraken. We've talked about it before, and I know you got to hear some of what we were hearing in Seattle Kraken camp by way of Dave Haxtell about Eeli Tolvanen, especially as he was starting to become a mainstay in the lineup. And it took a little while. He came over, I believe we were on a road trip, if I remember correctly, and he didn't play right away. And when he got into the lineup, he became a mainstay. And I think that's because of what he can do on the power play, special teams. Oh my goodness.
I
Special
know.
teams, a little bit of a nightmare for us. That's just a thread and a through line, regular season, postseason. We've got to fix that. But Eeli Tolvanen certainly improved that. And he's a grinder. He is a hardworking skater for us, plays both ways, and he just really has a strong IQ. I think sometimes you look at players and they're either kind of brute force, play that physical game, or they're very cerebral. And I
Yes.
think Tolvanen, akin to really like a Yanni Gourde, a really good blend of the two. And we really have a roster that's built that way. So I think Eeli Tolvanen really fits the bill.
Well, it's been hard to see him succeed, but I will say a lot of people in Nashville were really invested in seeing how he performed. The other thing I will say to your Locked On Krakens listeners is just keep your ear out for any sort of coaching announcement in Nashville, because if the Predators decide to move away from John Hines, Eeli Tolvanen will likely have been a factor in that decision. So just something to keep your ear open. Eeli Tolvanen may still cause repercussions in Nashville, depending on what Barry Trotz decides.
Well. The drama
The
of
drama
it all.
continues like sands through
Wow.
the hourglass, friend.
Oh my goodness. Well, we are definitely going to have to follow up then if that is the case. And Eeli Tolvanen will be one of our exit interviews coming up over on Locked On Kraken. So we'll make sure to send over a note in case Preds fans want to hear what he had to say after the season. And we are squad casting it up today because we're going to talk about our AHL teams, and we're going to talk about the Admirals and the Firebirds as they go head to head. So even though we didn't get NHL playoff and postseason action, our two AHL teams are crushing it, and that's coming up on this episode of Locked On Predators and Locked On Kraken. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Now, Birddogs is a new partner here with the Locked On company. Now, I have talked to you about definitely more geared towards the men folk and their pants and shorts needs, but all hosts were given a pair of Birddogs. And what I can say, as someone who often has difficulty finding things that fit the waist and the thigh area, Birddogs really does fit the bill here. And so, they have a stretchy fabric and really created to have some versatility. So, whether you are lounging in Tulsa, that would be me, or maybe you just need a pair of slick pants for a really important meeting, but you don't want to go too stuffy and still keep it comfortable, Birddogs is for you. And so what we want you to do is head over to the website, order your favorite pair. They have all kinds of crazy names that I don't even get all of the references to, but they, you can find whatever you need and find your needs there. I even got a pair that have some of the Kraken colors in them, so I really appreciated that. So for the versatility, for the comfort, Birddogs might just be for you, and you'll get a nice Birddogs tumbler with every purchase. So, have fun and hope you get a nice, comfy pair of shorts for the summer months. Ann Kimmel, we are back here for our Squadcast episode, Locked on Kraken, Locked on Predators. And we talked a little bit about the NHL postseason, but now it's time to talk about the Calder Cup playoffs. Now, let's start first with the Milwaukee Admirals. What can you tell us about that team and their run now to this clash with the Coachella Valley Firebirds?
So the Milwaukee Admirals are a really interesting story for Nashville Predators fans, but really for any NHL fans, because as the Seattle Kraken took on the Nashville Predators, they saw some faces that you all will see again when the Milwaukee Admirals face off in the Western Conference Finals here, because the Nashville Predators ended up using so many of their Admirals players this season, whether it was due to injury. We had injuries to a lot of the top players on the Nashville Predators roster, whether it was due to the huge fire sale that happened at the trade deadline. So many young Milwaukee Admirals players got time in the Nashville Predators lineup. And so it's been really interesting. And a lot of Preds fans are very invested in this Calder Cup run because it's a glimpse at the future of the Nashville Predators. So you're going to see players that have had some NHL time. Several made their NHL debut this season, but they are back in the AHL. And it's been an interesting season. The Milwaukee Admirals, of course, have all these players back now from Nashville, but for a good chunk of their season in the AHL, they were filling holes because the Predators kept pulling players out. So they signed several guys to PTOs to fill out the roster. And even with their roster depleted with some of their stars up in Nashville, this Milwaukee Admirals team was really able to get it done in the regular season. So the team might look a little bit different in this postseason because they've got everybody back, but it's an exciting Admirals lineup. There's a lot of interesting players here to keep your eye on, both now and maybe next season in the NHL.
So for fans watching on YouTube, if you are listening on audio, don't worry, we're going to walk you through this. But you mentioned that we might recognize some names, and I'm looking at the top scorers, and who is it? The one and only Eeli Tolvanen right there listed as a top 5 still. But we know, of course, he's squarely with the Seattle Kraken now. But, I think there were some other names as well. I mean, I remember when we did a squad you talked about Evangelista, and
yes,
I see that that's definitely a player that we're going to watch. And Evangelista and the rest of the Admirals did something that unfortunately the Seattle Kraken couldn't do, and that was to beat Texas in the postseason.
We did it for you all. It was a really tough road for the Admirals to get here. Both of their series went to 5 games. And this Texas game, this Texas series was really tough. The Stars were a very tough AHL team. Luke Evangelista was really big in this. The other player that's really big for the Milwaukee Admirals to keep an eye on, and you will not fail to notice him, is our goaltender, Yaroslav Askarov. Now, here's why you'll notice him. He is one of the most indigestion-inducing goaltenders you will ever watch, because he plays a very aggressive style of play. He likes to skate on out to the circle and play the puck. Sometimes it's a brilliant play. Sometimes he gets bit by it, which happened in the series with Texas, where he came out to play the puck and just, is maneuvered around very easily. So that's another name to watch. Definitely our goaltender, Yaroslav Askarov. Kind of a wild and crazy guy. I always say that I have to have Tums nearby when I see him on the ice, because he is so stress-inducing for me. But, kind of a fun, wild style in net. He's definitely going to be somebody who's going to be mixing it up with this group.
Wow. I'm really excited to see this matchup for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. We had to take on the Tucson Roadrunners. Now, I still have this coming out for Black Rosie Media, but I was able to shadow their PA announcer. And
cool.
so I got to see the Roadrunners beep beep in action. And my goodness, they are a brute team. I mean,
Yeah.
they just really go after it. I believe in the game that I watched, I forget who they were playing. Oh, they were playing almost said OL Reign. That's a football soccer team, but they were playing the Reign, and there was a penalty in like the first 40 seconds. So
Okay.
yeah, okay, a little different, and it was not the last. Oh my goodness, that door needed some W4 after the game, because my goodness. But so we got through the Roadrunners and then the Wranglers, and are now going to be taking on this Admiral squad. Now, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, unique situation. This is our first year in the AHL as the Firebirds, but a lot of our players, Max McCormick, Alexander True, Cole Lind, they all played with the Charlotte Checkers last year and made a pretty deep run with that squad as well. Max McCormick is the captain once again. And also we brought over one of the coaches from that coaching staff. Bilesma now is our head coach at Coachella Valley, and Jessica Campbell is the assistant coach there. We've had Jessica Campbell on Locked On Kraken. So for any Preds fans, if you want to catch that, you can listen to that episode over on Locked On Kraken. And so what we also heard, I referred to Ron Francis and Dave Haxtell and the exit interviews. So of course, Ronnie Francis was asked about Coachella Valley and talking about how there's been a lot of promise, even though the teams, as of yet, because everything's so new for us, we still haven't been completely in sync when it comes to systems, but that's building. Yeah. And so when you see a player like Ty Cartier, the AHL Rookie of the Year, come to the Seattle Kraken and make an immediate impact after Jared McCann fell to injury, a really nasty hit. But anyway, kill McCarr. It was nasty. And so, but you see Ty Cartier come up and now creating good problems for Ron Francis and Dave Haxtell, because again, AHL Rookie of the Year that we found through our scout, not someone who was drafted, and now has played in the big show and has made an impact. So what does that mean for us? But also just goes to show you the skill that we have on our roster. We were, before we got started, we were taking a look at the player stats, and Locked On Kraken fans know I've done this before, but if you look at the top scorers, now this is just the playoffs. Look at all of those Firebirds. You'll love to see it.
We see them.
We love to see it. I love a good Firebird logo. I'm a huge fan of the mythical creature that is the Phoenix. So that's essentially a Firebird. Evangelista's on there too.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at this. I mentioned Lind. I mentioned McCormick. Riker Evans, another great player. Hughes, McKenna. And then also we have the added bonus of we have Joey Decord as our goaltender, really solid. I think he's a very active goaltender, so I understand what you're talking about like heartburn inducing. Yes. He definitely likes to play the puck. He will come out to play the puck. But also Chris Drieger, I mentioned the goaltending, issues, circus that we've had with the Seattle Kraken. Chris Drieger was now properly sent to the Coachella Valley Firebirds for the remainder of the postseason once the Seattle Kraken, once our season ended, because he has been in rehabilitating from his AHL is the league, from his ACL.
So many A's and L's.
So many from his knee surgery. So you've got Joey Decord, who's been great for the Coachella Valley Firebirds all season long, and again with the Charlotte Checkers last year. But then you have an NHL level goaltender as the backup goalie. So we're feeling pretty good about this team. And yes, for those keeping watch, especially early in the Seattle Kraken season, you also have Shane Wright on the ice for this AHL squad. To be determined, though, how Shane Wright is going to fit into the organization overall, whether that be with the Seattle Kraken or with the AHL. It sounded like some of that was maybe still in question, but we shall see. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, offense is huge for the Seattle Kraken. for the Seattle Kraken affiliate, the Coachella Valley Firebirds. That being said, I do think we are sometimes wanting for defense. We can put Joey Decord in a really difficult bind by just giving up a ton of goals. But what are you expecting from the Admirals?
When it comes to defense, I think we really have a solid group. It may not be a group that is quite ready for the next step into the NHL, but where they're at in the AHL, they really are doing fantastically. We have Jordan Gross, we have Adam Wilsby. We have one of my very favorite players. He played 5 or 8 games for the Nashville Predators. Defenseman, his name is Spencer Stasny. So keep an eye on him because he plays a lot of minutes in these games. Fantastic skater, probably one of the best skaters in the AHL. So smart with the puck. So defensively, it almost feels like Yaroslav Askarov can take a few more risks like he does, because defensively, it feels like the Admirals really are solid. They understand what they need to be doing. They're very supportive. They understand how they have to play with Askarov in net. So I think defensively, they feel very strong. Goaltending feels very strong. The Admirals have struggled on the power play, which has been a strength of theirs through the regular season. But all of a sudden, especially in the second series with the Texas Stars, they couldn't convert on the man advantage. And that's something that they're really going to need to do in this series.
Well, we have already tossed out some names of some players to watch, but coming up on this Squadcast episode of Locked On Predators and Locked On Kraken, let's really break down what the schedule will look like. So we are airing this on Thursday, so that will be the day of, as I like to say, game day for the Coachella Valley Firebirds and the Milwaukee Admirals. We're going to go over the schedule. We're going to go over some of the stats and facts and essentially make some predictions and maybe just get into some fun facts about the team and their logos and their jerseys, because why the heck not? That's coming up on this Squadcast episode. But right now, I want to tell you about Athletic Greens is also amazing, but I want to tell you about eBay Motors. eBay Motors, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need a part or accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part fits right the first time around. You just add your specific vehicle to your garage or my garage, and you look for the green check to know the part will fit, or you will get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, we are back talking AHL hockey with the amazing Ann Kimmel, one of your co-hosts of Locked On Predators. I, of course, am Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken. And later tonight, on a game day, we've got the Coachella Valley Firebirds taking on the Milwaukee Admirals. Now, let's just take a really quick look at what they have here as the matchup. The Coachella Valley Firebirds will be hosting at Acrisure Arena this first game. So that's going to be in sunny California. And, we have not seen each other. So brand new teams here. And, I think the Coachella Valley Firebirds, we've been drawing really well. So I'm very excited to see what the playoff atmosphere will be. We talked a little bit about this. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see the Milwaukee Admirals just took on Texas, and the Coachella Valley Firebirds, we had to go the distance with the Calgary Wranglers. And here are some top scorers and the like. But how do you like the Admirals on the road? How have they been faring?
You know, they really do fine on the road. They love to play at home. There's a great crowd in Milwaukee that supports the Admirals, lots of watch parties, even down here in Nashville. But they really don't seem too bothered by road games. You know, like I said, their last two series have gone the length, 5 games. So they know it does not matter where they play. They've got to get the job done.
Yep, and you can see here we have this is the game sheet for later tonight. Home record for the Admirals. To your point, 3-1-1. The Coachella Valley Firebirds 6-2-1. So we're liking, like I said, playing at Acrisure. It's a new barn, so who doesn't like playing at a new barn? You know, you mentioned a little bit about special teams here. We can see that the Coachella Valley Firebirds have the same affliction as the Seattle Kraken. 11 for 51. Yikes. On the power play. And it's not great at home. So maybe that's an opportunity for the Admirals.
Yeah. The Admirals have had a really good penalty kill. There are a couple of players on the Milwaukee Admirals teams that have not gotten the memo that there are not snacks in the sin bin. There's a couple of guys who keep going back to check for granola bars. There aren't any there. Fortunately, the penalty kill has done really well kind of managing those, but it's something that they are going to have to be mindful of, regardless of what the stats say for Coachella Valley, because you all have scorers.
Yes. We, whether we're talking Seattle, whether we're talking Coachella Valley, we like playing at even strength, sometimes to the point where I'm like, hey, are you sure you really want to go on the power play? But to your point, the PK at an 84% clip, just over an 84% clip for the Admirals. We're just a scotch short of 81%. But the PK on the road, look at this. For the Admirals, 92, almost basically 93%. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. Here we go with the goals for, goals against. Goals for the Admirals, 34. Goals for Coachella Valley, 47. But we're also giving up 29. We're about in the same boat there. 27 for the Admirals. So I always like and just bringing up some of these stats so we can anchor our thoughts and feels in what the stats say. But then also sometimes you buck trends, especially in the playoffs. So I think for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, what I'd like to see from them is to really hunker down defensively. Also, just thinking big picture, I think that's an opportunity for some of these younger guys or even guys that have been in the AHL for a while, if they want to get a look. My personal take, I am not Ron Francis, just to be clear, but my personal take is that, you know, getting some fresh and young blood on our defensive side of things wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But what are some trends that you are hoping that the Admirals buck, or maybe some things that you've seen in the last handful of games that you think they can really capitalize on that maybe are not reflected stats wise?
Well, we talked about the power play, but there is one player that I really want to keep an eye on, especially on the man advantage for the Milwaukee Admirals, and that is Joachim Kimmel. Now, the Predators picked him up. He dropped to 17th in last year's draft. He has played in Finland, and he is now here with the Milwaukee Admirals. And this is a young man who, when he is determined to make a goal, will it to happen almost, and especially on the power play. So this is a player that is going to be looking for a one-timer from the circle, and he was very successful in game 5. The Admirals got 4 goals in the first period. Joachim Kimmel had 2 of those goals. So this is a player who I think may be able to turn those power play statistics a little bit on their head in this series if he can stay hot and keep going on the power play. And again, another thing I would just encourage people to really keep an eye on this series, and I'll explain to you some context behind that comment, but especially for Nashville, but as I'm hearing from you with Coachella Valley, there are a lot of storylines that may carry over from the AHL this season into both of our NHL teams next season. And for the Admirals, it's not just players like Luke Evangelista and Joachim Kimmel. It is also our coaching staff. So Carl Taylor has been the head coach of the Milwaukee Admirals. Very, very well respected in the Nashville Predators organization, in the Nashville community. And like I said, we've talked about maybe there could be some coaching news for the Predators. Carl Taylor is somebody who the Nashville Predators fan base definitely would love to see behind the bench in Nashville. So there's a lot to like about this matchup, not just for Calder Cup reasons, but also for next season for both of our teams.
Yeah, agreed. And you mentioned a player to watch, and I'd really like to see what Shane Wright can do. You know, he's got 4 points, a goal, and 3 assists, just focused on the playoffs alone. But, you know, I think that there is an expectation that he continues to work on his game. So it's a little bit tough, right, in the AHL in particular, because there's so many things that you have to focus on just to win and advance in the playoffs. But there are also, as we said, even at the coaching level, implications for the bigger picture and being more NHL adjacent for a lot of these players. And so Shane Wright is a player that comes to mind. But all right, and we are on opposite sides of tonight's game against the Admirals and the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Also, have to give a shout out to our very own JD Hernandez, who is the PA announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. We have an episode with him officially announcing on Locked On Kraken, which was pretty cool. But we want to wish him luck from the greater Locked On, especially Locked On NHL community. But before I let you go, Ann, on this super fun squadcast, we always have a good time. You mentioned off air that there is a special jersey and an alternate logo for the Admirals. And I would love for you to share that with Locked On Kraken fans.
Okay, so there's actually 2 that I want to mention, but the one that we talked about, and I should have looked up why this is, but the Milwaukee Admirals, they have, you know, cool logo, great jerseys and all that, but they have a jersey, I kid you not, that is a skating refrigerator. And I can't tell you off the top of my head where it even came from. It's a throwback. I don't know what the story is. I don't even care what the story is, because if you put an appliance on skates and then slap that on a shirt, I am bound to want to wear that. I really am. They also last season had special jerseys that were like barbecue tablecloth. They were red and white checked jerseys. Oh my gosh, I'll send you a picture of them. They were amazing. And one of our players got into a huge fight. So it was like bloody tablecloth. It was amazing. Like, they keep coming up with these really, really cool jerseys. So Milwaukee Admirals, it is a site worth shopping. They have all kinds of fun logos. There it is.
Look at, he's a mean unplugged refrigerator. Those are the worst kinds. They're dangerous. I'll tell you what.
Is that not fantastic?
They are dangerous. Look at that. Look at that
face.
Oh, and now also support the arts for sure. Wow, look at that. Frank the Fridge.
No idea why, but who cares?
Wow.
Does anybody even need a backstory when you can walk around with a jersey like that?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think we have a cool story, so to speak, for Fuego, who is the mascot for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. But Frank, so it's Frank versus Fuego.
There we go.
Ding, ding. Round 1 tonight. Make sure you catch the action on AHL TV. And of course, you can follow up with Locked On Predators and Locked On Kraken, as we will be following this series. But Ann, thank you so much once again for doing an amazing job tapping us into all things Nashville Predators, or in this case, the Milwaukee Admirals. Frank the Fridge.
Baby.
I freaking love that. I love that so much. But where can folks catch you, either on the Locked On Network or otherwise, talking about the Nashville Predators?
So you can follow the Locked On Predators podcast. You can find us on Twitter at LO_Preds. We're on your favorite podcasting platform. You can check us out on YouTube. And I also write for a site called InsideThePreds.com, where I cover all things Nashville Predators and Milwaukee Admirals.
And we might have to circle back once the NHL season is officially over, because Nashville hosting the draft.
We are so excited to be hosting the draft, and we've got 13 picks in the draft. So Nashville, it's going to be very busy in June here.
Oh, yeah. Seattle still has a crap ton of picks. We'll see if we have all 10 that we are expected to have this year. But I think some might be in play, and we might have a pretty decent offseason free agency. But again, my name is Erica L. Ayala, host of Locked On Kraken. Just like Locked On Predators, you can find us on YouTube or anywhere you listen to audio podcasts. And you can follow me personally, especially if the WNBA is your jive. You can follow me at elindsay08. That's ELINDSAY08. Well, for Ann Kimmel, I once again am Erica L. Ayala. Thank you for listening to this Squadcast. We hope to see the Everydayers on our next episode. We'll, I'm sure, be recapping game 1 of this series. But until then, be kind to yourselves and to each other. And if you are a Seattle Kraken fan, you know what I'm going to say. Hold fast and stay true. Everyone else, have a great Thursday night. And we'll catch you on the next Squadcast between Locked On Preds and Locked On Kraken.